community-supported agriculture on this Farm to Fork, Wyoming. By now, if you shop often at the farmers markets, you've likely heard of CSAs. But how many of us actually know the pleasure of a weekly box of produce straight from the farm? Community-supported agriculture, or CSAs, are still not common in Wyoming, but they've been popping up around the country since the 1980s. Back in 2007, the USDA documented over 12,000, and their popularity has continued to grow. CSAs range in size from small like this backyard one in Lander to the largest in California that serves over 40,000 households. Maggie McAllister's Painted Sage Farm is one of perhaps a few dozen CSAs in Wyoming.
So this is the first greenhouse that we built back in 2009. We got a grant from the Specialty Crop Grant Program from the state of Wyoming, and built this and grew all winter long in it. And it was amazing to be able to do that. It was just kale and salad greens and things like that. So the first year, 5 shareholders, and we did good. And we stopped bringing them groceries in January and February, but then everything popped back up, and we then had a spring share, and we raised it up to 10 and 15, and it's just grown ever since.
CSAs are attractive to consumers and producers who want to see locally raised food become a reality in their communities.
When people invest in a CSA, they're investing in their community. You're not just buying vegetables, you're an investor now. And you're looking beyond just, I need to feed my family. You're looking at, I want to support these people and because I believe in what they're doing. And that being said, all of our CSA members, they believe in us and they really want to see us succeed and they really want to see us grow. And so every CSA that we sell is a growing opportunity.
Shareholders assure a reliable market for the farmer and capital to start the next growing season.
So basically they pay an annual fee and they get a weekly delivery of produce from, we say June, the second week in June, to sometime in late October or November. Just depends on when frost comes and what's in. Some years, like this year, we were harvesting in May, so they get some bonus weeks at the beginning. And some years we end earlier, but they share in the risk with us. When the gophers eat all the broccoli, they don't get any broccoli. And they deal with it. They buy broccoli at the farmer's market. So they really have helped the farm, and we wouldn't be where we were today without them. We know how many people we're growing for on a base amount, and we can buy seeds for that and so that money helps us in the off season when we're not at farmers markets and selling to restaurants and to the grocery stores.
And the benefits seem to outweigh the risks for members.
The shareholders get first dib on everything, and most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, the shareholders will get things that we don't bring to market because we only have enough to give to them.
Shareholders provide a base, but selling at the farmer's market is essential to turning a profit.
In the spring, before the farmers markets start, we've got a lot of greens, and so we can package them up and sell them to some of the grocers up in Jackson. We sell to some restaurants, but you always want to sell retail at the farmers market because you're getting more money for the same item. We sell to our restaurant salad greens for $5 a pound, but those same salad greens at the farmers market are $14 a pound. So there's a big difference there.
And now they're growing crops that many considered ungrowable in the Pinedale area, thanks to shareholder support and a couple of insulated greenhouses.
There's 2 layers of plastic, a fan that blows between 12 to 18 inches of air. And so when we were researching greenhouses, we knew we couldn't do it with a single layer. It wasn't going to provide the insulation. And later on we found out is the structural support that this inflation provides is really great for our wind here.
This has added at least 4 months to their growing season.
The first year we had 3 separate growing seasons in here. What we'd plant and then we'd pull. And what we found out is you can't do 3. That was crazy. And so now what we've got is 2 growing seasons. We plant in the spring. When that stuff comes out, then we plant again for summer and fall. So what we've got going on right now is fall crops. We've got, our squashes and our beans and our tomatoes, an eggplant and some cucumbers. And we grow over 30 different types of vegetables. Yeah, and then these are some filet beans. And you've got, the 3 different colors, and we mix those together to give to the shareholders. And then we have some provider beans, a standard green bean. Some things, we've had problems with. Cucumbers. We haven't ever harvested very many cucumbers. And I don't know if the growing conditions just obviously aren't perfect for it. We found different varieties that work better than others. A lot of the miniature cabbages, because of the short season.
And the offerings continue to expand.
We have a lot of unused real estate here. And so what we thought was, let's do an experiment and grow some strawberries in these and create a growing environment, and it seems to have worked. When the sun is shining and they're warm, they're sweet. So what we'll do in the fall is we will take them down and put them in the aisles and put straw over them. And then in March, when we get back, we'll hang them back up and start watering them, and hopefully we can get 2 to 3, 4 years out of them. I don't know. Well, it's an experiment. This summer we planted, I want to say maybe 8 different types of potatoes, and 3 of them did fantastic. I mean, we had potatoes that were bigger than a softball. I mean, they were huge, and huge isn't so good, but they were also very productive. So you had maybe 1 big one on a plant, but then you had a whole bunch that were perfect size. Garlic grows incredibly good here outside, and with little or no supplementation to the soil, it grows really great here. So the last couple of years have been really a test to see not only what vegetables will grow, but even within each vegetable, what varieties will grow good.
What started out as clay and rock is now fertile and productive.
Really, we're trying to work on the soil structure, and it's amazing to me because next door, which is 1 year older than this, so we've added compost 1 more year, it is thick with worms. I mean, it is just, it's incredible soil. This isn't quite there yet, but every year it gets better because what we do is we have a tiny little tiller that, it just kind of goes like this, but it only does about the top 4 to 5 inches of soil because we don't want the whole soil structure to be ripped out. So he's weeding. We'll go through with that if it's needed. If it's not needed, we'll just do it with a hoe, and we just break up and rake it up, and then we go and take our compost and we put about 2 to 3 inches of compost on it, rake it all in, add any supplements if we need, green sand, rock phosphate, blood meal, kelp. This will become so lush and thick with worms, and that's how you know.
The worms are evidence of a thriving community of soil fauna and microbes working hard to convert organic materials into nutrients plants need to thrive. Many of these same microbes contribute to our own good health and digestion.
Really, and I mean, it's amazing to see over the course of 4 years growing in a greenhouse, the worms and just the abundant life in the soil. And we've never put worms in here, but so here's a baby you can see right there. This is beautiful dirt. And you should have seen it before because it was really, really high in clay.
And waste from the Wind River Brewery has had value all around the farm.
The spent barley was being put in a dumpster and going to the landfill. And I had read online that you could use it as feed. And so it still hovers around 17 to 22% protein even after they've cooked it. And So we used it primarily for the pigs and the chickens and the turkeys as a supplement to the organic feed. And then when there's an overabundance of it, we put it in the compost pile. And we found that it aerates the clay soil better than manure or the other organic material we've been using. And so that, in addition to getting horse manure from some of the neighbors, has really added to the soil. It also was wonderful. We mixed it in, hardly composted it at all, along with some manure into the garlic beds last fall. And that's worked wonders.
The spent grain has also made animal production more profitable.
This year we've got 15 hogs and about 15 turkeys. And then we also raised broilers, the Red Ranger out on the pasture, and they've thrived on the brewer's grain and organic feed. And, it just adds a well-rounded, if we pull chard out of the greenhouse and dig it up, we can take it over and feed it to the pigs. And so it's, a lot, it's just sustainable.
Wyoming produces a lot of grain for feed, but securing local supplies raised without sprays or GMOs is still a challenge.
The organic feed is number one. I can't sell to my customers without using the organic feed. It's very important because it's GMO free and there's no pesticides, Roundup, any of that sprayed on it. And it's costly. And I think it would be a lot more profitable if we could grow grain here. But at 7,200 feet in 28 days, we can't grow any kind of grain. Although we did do some preliminary trials with quinoa this year and found out that the gophers like it better than the lamb's quarter. So in the future, if we could get grain at a reduced price somehow, working maybe with some other growers over in the Central Valley that we could buy bulk grain from, when we're working on some corn right now. It's not organic, it's field corn, but it's non-GMO and it hasn't been sprayed with anything. If we could bring that in, that would really reduce our price.
Pricing their offerings is another part of the equation.
It's definitely a passion. You're definitely not making a big profit, but you can charge prices because people want it and it's in demand, and it's that whole supply and demand thing. There was somebody selling chicken at the farmer's market in Jackson, $8.75 a pound for a whole chicken. That's $32 for an average sized chicken. I couldn't afford that, but I can grow it and I can eat that same chicken. We don't charge that much. We charge $5.99 a pound. But even that is, and that's the same for the turkeys. That's over $100 for a turkey, but our turkeys are good. I mean, you never forget it, and they're tender, and they are so tasty and moist, and you know where it came from, and you know what it ate. I couldn't go back and eat a store-bought turkey ever.
It's that kind of knowing that fosters a growing demand and commitment from their customers.
Once you know, you can never not know. It's the burden of knowing. All of a sudden you start, you're reading labels all the time. You're asking, where did this come from? Who raised this chicken and things like that. And it's all very surreal when you don't know about it. But as soon as you know, then it's just a part of you, and it just becomes the way that you live your life. So this is cress. Is like the epitome of an honest job. Whatever you put into it is what you get out of it. Cress is a great green for salads, sandwiches, a little spice to it. Kind of brings you back to the old adage, you reap what you sow.
Interns have played an important part as well.
Our interns are what make it happen. They get up in the morning and they do the chores and they do the weeding and they do the hard work. I can only say I'm so impressed with the up-and-coming generations that are interested in farming, and these are going to be the movers and shakers that are going to mold the future generations in our future world. And they're thinkers, and they see a problem and they solve it, and they're phenomenal youth. If we could pay our interns, they would be worth, at least a couple $1,000s a month. I mean, big money. they do it all. But they're willing to come and trade out the experience and the learning and the knowledge that they're getting for basically room and board. We give them a shoddy little trailer to stay in with no running water. They have to shower at the farmhouse.
So this is what it looks like. We've got a little functional kitchen. We've got some nice counter space.
They get farm products to eat for dinner and some things that we buy in bulk. Guys, some green bean tacos. And we like to provide our volunteers a good meal that we've made here. This is some garlic skate pesto. That's like a staple here at the farm. Yeah, it's always a good meal going on. Yeah. I will say that.
Children also have an important role in the future of these operations.
I'd like to get more involved with the kids programs and involve kids, because that's how they got recycling going. Is they taught it to the kids, and the kids came home and said, we need to recycle. And so, and it eventually over, a 20-year period, we're all recycling now. Who doesn't recycle?
Change for humans is really hard. Even making minor changes is scary for most people. And so to see, the general population making changes is amazing. When you're an organic farmer, you see it on a personal level. You're meeting your customers and you're meeting people who are making changes. That's where the inspiration is.
On the fork end of things, there's been a lot of interest in nutrient-dense traditional foods. One of the more interesting ones involves microbes put to work in fermentation. I asked Diane Saenz to fill me in on what fermentation is all about. First thing I wanted to know was, are we already eating a lot of fermented foods?
Oh geez, so many that we don't even think about. If you're a baker, you use vanilla. Vanilla was fermented. If you go out on the weekends, you like a drink, you have your wine, your beer, all that's fermented. If you love chocolate, that's fermented. All this stuff is fermented, besides cheese, besides yogurt, besides bread. Yeah, so it's huge. It's huge.
I asked Diane to make one of her favorite recipes. She chose some end-of-season root vegetables to pickle in a wonderful Indian pickle spice.
What we have here is some fenugreek, sesame seeds, brown mustard seeds, fennel seeds, and cumin seeds. And we'll need to roast these guys to give just a different bit of flavor. So it'll be nice. And then towards the end, we can add the chili powder and the turmeric. I know this spoon very well. It's about a half a teaspoon. And so I'm gonna toss in a teaspoon of each. Sesame seeds. And you'll know if your pot is too hot if the seeds start to sputter. And if they're going all over the place, as you see now, that's a good indicator to turn down your heat. It can take between 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes. Fenugreek will turn nice and brown. It'll beige up real nice. The fennel seeds will get a lighter green, like a brighter, more vivid. And the sesame seeds will kind of turn tan. And take them out of the hot pan so they can stop roasting. And we'll leave them there to cool. So these will be added later. So you see a nice roast. We've toasted our spices and the whole house smells of pretty much curry. And we're ready to ferment. And when you're fermenting, if you can kind of break it down into 5 easy steps. First one being sterilize, chop, salt, pound, and then pack. And the reason I say sterilize is you want to start off with clean equipment and not really invite any other microbe into the mix. What we're trying to cultivate are those lactobacilli, bacteria. They live on the surface of vegetables, and so already we have our stuff inoculated, so there's no need to add anything else. We got some rutabaga, carrots, and turnips, and that's going to be our main veggies. And in terms of chopping, anything goes. If you want to chop it, if you want to shred it, what we're doing now is increasing the surface area of the vegetable. And the salt, once we add that, is going to pull out the juice from the vegetable itself. And a good rule of thumb is generally for every 2 pounds of vegetable, be it cabbage, be it broccoli, be it beets, whatever, you add about a tablespoon of salt.
and the salt you use does matter. You don't want to use something with anti-caking ingredients. So any pickling salt, any sea salt, smoked sea salt, anything you can do, as long as it doesn't have anti-caking ingredients.
So the reason I'm going to add the salt already is so it can start pulling out some of the juice, because this is obviously not super fine. So the next guy we'll add to the pot is a turnip. Fermenting not only creates microbes, those microbes will break down anti-nutrients within the vegetable, and also if there's pesticide residue on the vegetable itself, it's been shown to break down that, not in its entirety, but in some. And then we have beautiful carrots. So I'm going to use this side of a box grater just to get those uniform pieces. Okay, lovely. And we'll toss it around. Just to make sure that salt is getting on all of the vegetables, and you can already see where they're starting to sweat. Okay. At this point, you can walk away, cover it with a towel, walk away for a little bit. The longer it sits with the salt, the more it's going to sweat, and sweating is what we want it to do. So while this kind of like takes its time to sweat, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the other ingredients for this Indian pickle, and the other ingredients being garlic, at least 5 cloves. We got our ginger, and then we have our lemon. And for the lemon, I'll keep the peel on, and I'm just going to want to slice it. Get the garlic, same thing. If you have a little, obviously the finer you mince it, the more flavor it'll pull out. And with the ginger, probably for a quart-sized jar, you're going to want to go with an inch piece. This is obviously a little bigger. And gauging about how many vegetables we chopped up, that's going to be more like 2 quarts. I'm going to throw a little extra in there just for giggles. But the easiest way to get the skin off, just take a spoon. Trying to keep them nice and thin. We're pretty much done with all the chopping. What I'm going to do to make sure there's enough salt is taste it, and you taste it throughout. You're looking for the salinity of your tears. At least I cry a little more salty. The salt does several things. You know, it's not the main preservative, but it does have it does help with that. In addition, it also reacts with the pectin, which are in the vegetables, to make it crunchy. Okay, and so you don't add salt, you're gonna get mushiness. So that's looking pretty nice. I'm gonna go ahead and take the seeds that we toasted and toss them in. They're nice and cool. I'm gonna just dunk it in. Do green chilies, well I forgot those, so I'm gonna substitute with nice dry red chilies. So toss it around. And now it's time to put in our turmeric and our chili powder. And we probably want a teaspoon of that. Remember, this little guy is a half a teaspoon. Turmeric is bitter, and so putting too much is you'll get that. And I like to add pepper whenever I use turmeric, because compounds in the pepper react with compounds in the turmeric, namely curcumin, which has been found to have an anti-carcinogenic effect, and so it's not activated if it doesn't have the black pepper. So keep that in mind when you're cooking with turmeric. All right, so that's our basic little recipe, and now we'll go ahead and start stuffing. Don't ferment in like stainless steel or anything like that. You don't want any reacting. So basically you can do glass, you can do enamelware that's not chipped, and you can also do food grade plastic. And pound it and pack it in. I mean, obviously with these chunks and cubes, there are going to be tons of air pockets. But in order for the microbes to work, the lactic acid bacteria, they need an environment that sands oxygen, an anaerobic environment. If it's under the liquid, oxygen won't be there, and that'll happen with the juice. We'll need to add the brine that I was talking about earlier, which is just the salted water. So the brine is generally about 1 tablespoon per quart of water. And this is 2 cups. So a teaspoon and a half. We're just going to add the brine to the veggies. You see how the air bubbles? So remember I said no, air bubbles are bad, not our friend. And what we're going to do to encourage these vegetables to stay submerged is create a weight using a Ziploc bag. And I'm going to fill with brine. Now why would we fill with brine? Well, in case the bag has a hole. So I'll just put a little top on that, stick it in a corner, and I'll probably let this go for, I don't know, a couple weeks. But the temperature I'm looking for is definitely below 70 degrees. The cooler it is, the slower it ferments. And so you can go as low as, 55. Any lower than that, it's pretty much going to go, it'll still ferment, but very slowly.
After it's sat, a couple weeks on the shelf, stick it in the fridge. If you keep it on the shelf, it's going to continue doing its thing, and then you're going to get, cabbage wine or something. Not that you want that. I've had kraut in my fridge that's going on a year, and it's awesome. Still tastes great because it's at a temperature that the activity is they're still going, but they're going really slow. And so it's not going to continue fermenting per se, but the flavors are just going to kind of sit. To be on the safe side, I would say 6 months. Right. Yeah.